So with the Oscars right around the corner, I thought I would take this time to review all those more serious movies that I didn't get to see until now. Think of this really as a best and worst video, but for the Oscar films. And just to be clear, some of these won't be nominated for a lot or even any Academy Awards. These are just the films that I would lump into this kind of category. There are still movies I gotta get to, like Trumbo, The Hateful Eight, and The Danish Girl. I'll get to them eventually, but for now, let's get into this. First up, Spotlight. This was a film that I was really looking forward to as soon as the first trailer came out, and it delivered. I wouldn't call it the best film of the year, but it would definitely be in my top 10. In case you don't know, this movie is about the Boston newspaper that broke the story about the Catholic Church turning a blind eye to priests molesting children. And if that sounds like a serious and kind of disturbing subject, it is. But this movie handles it with respect and delivers a really powerful final product. The cast in this is really good. My favorite actor, Michael Keaton, is of course amazing. Rachel McAdams, Stanley Tucci, everyone is great. Mark Ruffalo is proving himself as a solid, serious actor, and this cast really carries the entire movie. The only kind of problem I had with this movie is that nothing really stood out to me as far as direction, cinematography, that kind of stuff. It feels kind of like a really well-acted documentary. That being said, that style fits the subject matter really well, but my point is, as opposed to the usual other big Oscar contenders, there wasn't anything really to speak of as far as the technical stuff. That being said, this kind of movie doesn't need any over-the-top, exciting camera work. Overall, this is a really important movie. It has a very sad story to tell, and it tells it beautifully. It's an excellent film, especially if you want to know more about this issue, but it's not something I see myself going back to. I'll give Spotlight a 9 out of 10. Next up, The Big Short. This was a film that was completely off my radar, but my dad really wanted to see it, and hey, I'm not gonna pass up a trip to the cinema. And lo and behold, I had a really good time. First off, the cast is pretty stacked in this. Christian Bale is good in everything, and he really brings it here.
The whole housing market is propped up on these bad loans. They will fail.
Steve Carell is one of the funniest actors out there, but now he's showing he can also be a really great serious actor. I enjoy Ryan Gosling in pretty much everything he's in, and Brad Pitt, even though he isn't there for that long, is also really solid. Now this movie is directed by Adam McKay, who did Anchorman, among other things, and so I was interested to see how he would handle a more serious subject matter, and I thought he handled it really well. He took something that I really am not interested in, banking, finances, that kind of stuff, and he actually made it interesting. It's really complicated stuff, but I found that the explanations he offered, in sometimes quite bizarre ways, really helped. It took me a little while to get used to the style, and some people might find it off-putting, but I ended up really enjoying it. This movie is also really funny, not in a sort of obnoxious in-your-face way, but just kinda more subtle stuff. There was some Wolf of Wall Street fourth wall breaking, which I enjoyed. The way this movie cuts between 3 or 4 different storylines can get a bit tiring at some points, like right when I'm really getting interested in whatever this character is doing, we move right back to this other guy, that kind of thing. But it didn't break the movie at all. So this is a really interesting movie. It might be hard for some people to get into it, but I had a really good time with it. I'll give The Big Short an 8.9 out of 10. So this next one was a movie that I was honestly just gonna pass on, since even though it looked cool, a lot of critics were saying, yeah, it's alright, but after a strong recommendation from a friend of mine, shout out to you, Freddie, I finally found Black Mass, and I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it's necessarily fantastic, but it was a really engaging movie. First up, Johnny Depp in this. I always hear people say, oh, Johnny Depp is such a great actor, and being someone who grew up in the 2000s, I was like, he seems to really only have one character he can play. But now I get what people mean. Johnny Depp absolutely kills it in this. It's like a total transformation. The rest of the cast is really good as well. Joel Edgerton, Benedict Cumberbatch, and I surprisingly really like Corey Stoll, for reasons I'll get into in a sec. This movie had good performances, good music, good direction. It's just, again, nothing really stood out to me with the exception of Johnny Depp. There wasn't something I could point to and be like, that is something I will really remember about this movie specifically. It is plenty violent though. There are a lot of brutal and gruesome deaths in this, some of which I honestly didn't see coming. Now, something I've heard a lot of people say about this movie, and it's true, there's really no one to root for most of the film. It's just Bulger being a terrible person, killing people, and more or less getting away with it. The reason I like Corey Stoll so much in this wasn't because he gave a mind-blowing performance. He was really good for sure, but it was because he was a good guy, and he was finally going to take Bulger down. So really, it is satisfying to see his whole world crumble, but that's towards the end of the film, so a lot of the movie just feels a bit depressing and demoralizing. Still though, this is worth checking out if you want to see a great Johnny Depp performance, lots of blood and shooting, and Todd from Breaking Bad getting the crap beat out of him. I'm giving Black Mass a 7.9 out of 10. Alright, now let's get to the big biopic this year, Steve Jobs. Danny Boyle's directed some pretty solid stuff, and Aaron Sorkin has written some pretty solid stuff. Put them together and you get this movie. I had a surprisingly good time with this film. I was definitely expecting to enjoy it, but I wasn't expecting to have such a good time with it. This film has a fantastic script, which is what you would expect from a guy like Sorkin. Very sharp and witty dialogue, subtle humor, and all of that is brought together by the all-star cast.
Musicians play their instruments. I play the orchestra.
Michael Fassbender, who is becoming one of my favorites, completely nails this role. He might not look that much like Steve Jobs, but he sure as hell acts like him. Kate Winslet is really good, same with Jeff Daniels, and it's cool to see someone who otherwise pretty much only has done comedy be in a serious movie and be pretty great in it. This film also has a sort of interesting style, and what I mean by that is that this film shows basically only 3 main events, 3 main tech launches. So that sounds like it could easily crash and burn, but it works. This is a film that pretty much only is dialogue, but that works when you get an extremely talented screenwriter and cast. This film keeps you engaged all the way through. I never got bored while watching this. So ultimately, Steve Jobs is an excellent biopic that you should totally check out. It's a great film that tells a story that's pretty fascinating to me. I'm an Apple guy. I wrote down what I thought about this movie after I saw it on my Apple device. I edited the video you're watching right now on an Apple computer, as you could probably tell from the intro. I'm all into this stuff. So seeing this story was really interesting, and the film on the whole makes it very entertaining. I'll give Steve Jobs a 9.5 out of 10. So now let's talk about Michael Fassbender's other movie this year, Macbeth. I was really pumped for this movie after watching the trailer, but when it came out, I really didn't hear anything about it, so I was more cautiously optimistic. However, after watching the movie, I can say it's pretty good. First off, again, Fassbender is just amazing in this. It's kind of funny. There was a trailer for Steve Jobs before this movie, and seeing that back to back with this, it just shows how this guy can transform like that. One of the most talented actors out there, honestly. Talia al Ghul was really good as well, and Professor Lupin was also really good until he got stabbed, brutally. Spoiler alert, I guess, even though you probably already knew the plot of this movie. The cinematography in this was incredible. I can't remember who I heard say this, but I couldn't agree more. Pretty much every frame of this film you could print out and turn into a beautiful painting. The movie just looked great. And there are some pretty violent and intense battle sequences. There were only like 2, but they were pretty exciting. On the other side of things, like I mentioned, this is based on the play, so you do know what's gonna happen. There are also a couple of slowish moments in here, although most of the movie moves along at a pretty brisk pace. The ending also felt kinda stupid to me. I don't know why, but it just didn't land. I got what it was going for, but it sort of took me out of it a bit, which isn't a great thing for a movie to do at the very end. Also, I can't hold this against the movie itself, but when I saw this, I was doing Macbeth in school, and anyone who has had to watch a movie with their class and then analyze the hell out of that story for themes and symbolism can testify that it does take away a bit of your enjoyment of the film. Still, I'm trying to keep this as unbiased as possible. Macbeth ultimately is a well-acted, well-directed, well-made adaptation. It's great if you're studying the play and you want to get some new perspective on it, and on the whole, it's an entertaining enough movie. I'll give it a 7.4 out of 10. Now, when I made my top 10 movies of 2015 video, there were a couple of people asking where Creed was on the list. At the time, I hadn't seen it, but now that I have, I can say it would have definitely been in my top 3 of the year. Creed is one of the most incredible movies I've seen in a while, which is kind of uncommon for the 7th movie in a franchise. Michael B. Jordan is one of those actors that I feel like will be huge in a couple years, winning Oscars left and right, and I'll be able to say that I saw him rise to that. Yeah, we can just forget about that. He absolutely kills it in this movie. Stallone is also really good in this, one of the better Stallone performances I've seen in a while. That being said, while both were great, I would have given an Oscar nomination to Jordan over Stallone. The best world would be where they both get it, but if I had to pick one, I just think Jordan brought more to the table. But regardless, they're both really good. And this movie on the whole is just so inspirational and motivational. I love it when a movie can actually affect me in my real life, in a positive way I mean. And after seeing this, I was genuinely motivated to get stuff done, mainly while listening to this movie's soundtrack. The actual fights in this are phenomenal. Without spoiling anything, there's one towards the middle that is just fantastic. Ryan Coogler's direction in this movie is amazing, and this boxing match is entirely one shot, which really impressed me. But all of the other fights are great too. They feel really intense and gritty, they feel real. This movie made me feel like I was actually there. This film is also really good standalone. While I imagine Rocky fans will also really enjoy this, as someone who hasn't seen a Rocky movie in forever and doesn't really know the franchise that well, I could still get into this. And that's how these franchise movies should be, whether it's Mad Max, Star Wars, or this. Have stuff for the fans of the originals to gravitate towards, but also be an entertaining movie on the whole. Creed is the first movie I've ever seen in a cinema where I wanted to stand up and cheer. It's inspirational, it's intense, it's satisfying, it is everything I wanted it to be. Ryan Coogler is going to knock Black Panther way out of the park. This might be the movie I enjoyed the most in 2015. It's right up there with Mad Max for me. Regardless of how that turns out, I can still give Creed a 9.8 out of 10. And now we finally arrived at The Revenant, directed by Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu. In case you don't know, he directed one of, if not my favorite movie of all time, Birdman.
Smells like balls.
So needless to say, I was hyped to see this. And while I wouldn't say he blew Birdman out of the water with this was still what I would call a cinematic masterpiece. I don't like using that word because it just sounds kind of pretentious to me, but that's the only way I can describe this film. Leonardo DiCaprio is, as expected, fantastic in this, and if he doesn't win the Oscar this year, I will actually be kind of angry. I know, it's really just a shiny trophy that doesn't mean much, whatever, but come on, he absolutely deserves it for this. Tom Hardy is great as always. Domhnall Gleeson, who had a pretty solid 2015, if I do say so myself, was also really good, and that one guy from Narnia and We're the Millers, he was surprisingly really great as well. Now this film just looks stunning. This was filmed entirely with natural lighting. Whether it was a fire or moonlight or sunlight, it was all natural, which is just insane to think about. It's like Alejandro enjoys making his job harder. But I have to say, it paid off. This film just looks beautiful, and the cinematography and direction is as great as you would expect. This is an amazingly shot movie. It isn't that often that I'm baffled and genuinely don't know how something was done in a film, but between the bear scene in this and a ton of other stuff, I just don't get how it was pulled off. During some of these fights, the camera never cuts, like in Birdman, so I don't get how they added in these blood effects and other crazy stuff. And speaking of which, this movie is intense. It's extremely violent, very brutal, specifically that final fight, and it has a lot of terrifying moments. It really immerses you in the world. It's a very atmospheric movie. If I had to nitpick some stuff here, it was a tiny bit long, and there were some dream or hallucination scenes that weren't awful by any means, but they dragged on for a little bit too long, and at some points felt a tiny bit cheesy. Other than that though, this is pretty flawless. So overall, this is definitely the best made film of 2015. Whether it's my personal favorite, I'm not sure of yet, but it is just an achievement in filmmaking. I'll give The Revenant a 9.9 out of 10. Also, there are movies like Legend, The Martian, The Walk, and Bridge of Spies that kind of fall into this category, but I already talked about them in my top 10 movies of 2015 vid. So check that out by clicking here or the link down below. Also, while there are still films I gotta get to, I've now seen more movies, so this is what my updated top 10 movies of 2015 list looks like. Star Wars The Force Awakens, Inside Out, Spotlight, Steve Jobs, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, The Martian, Kingsman The Secret Service, Creed, Mad Max Fury Road, and The Revenant. Also, in case you're wondering what my predictions for this year's Oscars are, I posted them on my Instagram a couple weeks back, so here they are. Feel free to pause and look through. So those were my thoughts on some of the more serious movies this year. Which was your favorite? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. While you're at it, be sure to like this video, check out my Instagram at BHL_Hudson, and subscribe for more videos like the one you just watched. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.